It is Thursday, May 6th, 7:06 p.m. here in Washington, D.C., and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Nation's Pastime in the nation's capital, the season finale for the spring semester here on WCUA Radio. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this excellent episode. We're going to have a lot of discussion. A lot of things happened the past couple weeks. But before we start, just a quick reminder, and this is imperative this week due to it being the last episode. If you want to go ahead and follow us on Twitter, that's going to be at NatPastimeCap. And that's imperative because this summer we are going to be continuing weekly or bi-weekly episodes. They're going to be 30 minutes, and they are going to be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel only. They will not be live between the months of May and August. So if you still want to tune in, check out the shows, see what we're talking about anytime anything big happens in baseball over the summer, follow us on Twitter. All the information is going to be there about that. And we're also going to be setting up a voicemail box where you guys can call in, leave voicemail. We'll play it on the show. We'll answer your questions. We'll have some good discussion. So once again, that's at NatPastimeCap. Go ahead, follow that for all of that information after the show. And guys, let's get right into the discussion. Like I said, another fantastic week to talk about. And I think we have to start with, we seem like we're talking about it every week, but we have to because there's another no-hitter. John Means for the Baltimore Orioles throws another no-hitter this week and an absolute masterful performance.
Yes, it's the earliest in a season where we've had 3 no-hitters since 1969. The year of pitching is back. Obviously, 40 years later, John Means completely dominating yesterday. He's the first pitcher to ever throw a no-hitter while facing the minimum amount of batters without allowing a walk, without a hit batsman, or without a batter reaching on an error. The batter reached on a drop third strike. That was the only base runner of the day. Masterful performance for Means. 11 strikeouts on the afternoon against Seattle. The Orioles won the game 6-0. Mancini with a 3-run home run. But the command that Means had with all his pitches, he had it going on yesterday. And I think the most unbelievable thing is that he was a drop third strike away from the perfect game, and then Severino threw him out on the next pitch trying to steal. So I mean, he was just one drop third strike away from a perfect game. He was completely masterful, and honestly, it's one of the best no hitters in recent memory.
Definitely one of the best no-hitters that we've seen in recent memory. A quick reminder before we get further into the show, forgot to mention, if you want to call in at any time tonight, that number is 202-319-5106, 202-319-5106. Feel free to call in about anything baseball-related.
Yeah, and going back to John Means' no-hitter, so before the show we were debating whether or not that should be considered a perfect game because essentially there was no error, there was no walk. Obviously, it was a drop through strike, which allowed the base runner to get on base. But I want to say one other thing. To me, that was probably the most impressive no-hitter I've ever seen in my life because his stuff was just so filthy. His circle changeup was great. The defense was great. And when they were making contact, it was nobody was really making solid contact against him. So I think that's why it was so impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that it took this long into baseball's history to finally see a no-hitter where that was the reason it was a no-hitter.
And John Means is a legit ace. He's a legit ace. He's had it going on this year. 12 strikeouts yesterday in the no-hitter. He has a 1.37 ERA on the year. He is a legit ace, and he will probably be the Orioles representative at the All-Star game this year.
Did you know, by the way, when he was in the minors, he actually considered retiring from baseball because he was struggling?
Yes, and
Really?
he made a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Can you still connect with him on LinkedIn?
I don't think so. Can
I'll
you?
try right now.
Go for it. We're going to see if we can connect with John Means on LinkedIn. That would be a fantastic turn of events here in the studio. But I absolutely agree and echo everything that both of my co-hosts said here. This was one of the greatest no-hitters I've ever seen. The only error, and it wasn't even an error, coming on that drop third strike. John Means was masterful. 9 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. No hits, obviously, no walks. A fantastic performance. And I'm sure Baltimore Orioles fans love to see it. Not a whole lot else going on this season. And like James said, probably going to be the Orioles representative at the All-Star game in Colorado.
Update, I just sent John Means a connection. We'll see if he responds.
All right.
Wrong.
John Means has been sent a contact request on LinkedIn, and we'll let you know if we link up with him. Hey, we could get him on the show even. That would be wonderful.
See, my thing is, though, after this no-hitter, the Orioles obviously, they haven't looked so good lately. But like you said, this is the kind of thing that this team needed just to get fans excited and back into the game. There are Oriole fans. John Means was trending yesterday on Twitter. Orioles was trending yesterday on Twitter. The Baltimore Orioles haven't trended on Twitter in years. So the fact that John Means' no-hitter alone got them trending, I think it's a great sign for the Orioles.
And look, Baltimore, they are in last place in the AL East, but they're only 15-16, and they're only 3.5 out of first place in the American League East. They're not as bad as some of these other last place teams that we've seen this year, like the Detroit Tigers, who are 9-23. Baltimore's on the up and up, and they have Adley Rutschman waiting in the wings. They have a loaded farm system. They have John Means. They have Trey Mancini. They have the core there. The Orioles are on the rise. Like it's not going to be long again before they're contending in the AL for a playoff spot.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. A lot of good pieces there. Haven't really kept tabs on them. How is Yusniel Diaz doing down there, the big piece from the Machado trade?
He's doing okay. I don't know his exact numbers.
Don't believe he has debuted yet?
No. He has not debuted yet. He is he's hitting, I believe, in the 290 area. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but he's been pretty good for the Orioles.
I remember him being a piece that really intrigued me when he was traded in that Manny Machado deal in 2018.
I don't think they anticipate on calling him up until maybe next year. Maybe
that sounds
2
about
years.
right. He was a really young guy, I know, when the Dodgers traded him.
Adley Rutschman also, I don't think he's coming up this year either. Maybe next year. He's just another guy.
No, they're not going to rush any of those guys up. Diaz right now is playing in his first AAA season at Norfolk. He's 1 for 8 so far in the 3-game season, but him and Rutschman. Obviously, you have Grayson Rodriguez, 2018 first-round pick, and whoever their pick is this year, and plus Austin Martin, the number 2 overall. Excuse me, no, not Austin Martin. Heston Kjerstad, the number 2 overall pick last year's draft. An outfielder from Arkansas. So they have a lot of pieces. They have a lot of pieces in the farm system. If they can get this thing going, and if they can remain afloat and win 70 games this year, that'll be a huge success. And John Means is a legit ace, and he's a huge piece as to where they're going in the right direction, and he's going to be a big piece going forward for the Orioles.
Absolutely, yeah. John Means, once again, a fantastic performance this week, a no-hitter against the Seattle Mariners. Been a lot of no-hitters in that Seattle Mariners stadium over the past 5 years. Truly is remarkable, and not a lot of them have been from actual Seattle Mariners, unfortunately. Moving on to the next big piece of news today that just broke a couple hours ago. The Los Angeles Angels announced that Albert Pujols has been designated for assignment and has been released. Albert Pujols, after, I believe he spent a total of 8 years there in Los Angeles?
9
years.
This was the final year of his deal.
And he will not finish it. He was retiring at the end of the year anyway. Guys, apparently, according to Bob Nightingale, he wanted this if he wasn't going to get playing time. Do you think he thinks he can get a deal somewhere else?
Well, I don't think it was that he thought he could get a deal. I just think that he was tired of not playing. He was a bench player for the Angels, and I don't know if you remember correctly, but in 2011, he and Prince Fielder and Joey Votto were the big free agents, and to see him just fall off so drastically, it's sad to see. But at the end of the day,
to be fair with Fielder, though, that wasn't his fault.
No, not Fielder, but I mean, Joey Votto's deal didn't turn out as bad as the Pujols or the Fielder deal, in my opinion, but the Pujols deal really bad. He's making way too much money. When he has been healthy, he hasn't been very good. He hasn't hit 300 yet. Hasn't even really came close to that. Only hit over 40 home runs twice. But going back to your original question, I do think that he believes that he still has some left in the tank. If you remember correctly, he said before the season, I'm not officially retiring because if I perform well, I'm going to come back and play another season.
That's
you remember
right.
that?
I do.
Now, I do think that somebody will give Pujols a deal. I don't know who it's going to be. We have some ideas. I think we're going to get to that later in the show. But, James, what do you think?
It's unfortunate to see one of the greatest right-handers that the game has ever seen to have his career end like this. And he was unbelievable with the St. Louis Cardinals, but unfortunately he just never was the same when he signed with the Angels. He only made one All-Star team. He never had an OPS above 900. He a lot of people thought he would get to 700 home runs at least, but he didn't get to 700 home runs. Right now he's at 667 home runs, and obviously, Pujols, if this is it and he doesn't get picked up, he's had an incredible career. He's easily a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the most feared hitters the game has ever seen, one of the greatest right-handed hitters the game has ever seen, and he's what it means to be a true professional and just a true pure hitter. And I think everyone has a lot of Albert Pujols memories, but my favorite one, and I think a lot of people will share the same one, is the home run against Brad Lidge in the 2005 NLCS, right off the back wall in Houston, over the Crawford boxes. That just if you want to see what Albert Pujols was all about, coming through in the clutch, delivering when his team needed it, a 2-time World Series champion with the Cardinals, and he did it all, and we'll see him in Cooperstown in 5 or 6 years whenever he decides to hang it up for good.
One other thing I want to add about Albert Pujols. Did you know that when he was in St. Louis, only one time he hit below 300?
Yeah.
And that time where he hit below 300, he hit 299, and that was the year he was a free agent. I think you can correct me on that. He hit 299?
Yeah, in 2011, his last year with St. Louis, it was 299 with a 906 OPS.
Yeah, and he also never hit fewer than 30 home runs. Now, obviously looking at this in 2021, this is a whole new story, but I think the Angels should have seen this coming. the last 3 years Albert Pujols was in St. Louis, he was great, but you could see his numbers were slowly falling off. Now, granted, he was still the best hitter in baseball, but you could see his average falling off a little bit every single year. And it got to the point where I don't think it would have been worth giving a 10-year deal because he was 31 at the time and he was clearly falling off a little bit.
If you think about this from the perspective of the Cardinals organization, they did this correctly. That he won the World Series with them. He contributed in that World Series. Remember the 3-homer game against Texas?
If it wasn't for David Freese, he would have won World Series MVP.
Yeah, exactly. And think about that. And then they just let him ride off into the sunset, get his mega deal from somewhere else. They're not burdened by it. And I don't think I know a single St. Louis Cardinals fan who was upset about that. Because that could have been 10 long years of bad performance, and that would have soured the memory of Albert Pujols there.
You know, it's actually interesting. You can actually find archive videos of St. Louis fans being upset that he had left. Obviously, looking at it now, it looks good for the Cardinals to let him walk. But at the time, the Cardinals tried bringing him back. I don't know if you remember, but that spring training, the Cardinals gave him 2 contract offers, both in which he declined.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I think the Cardinals would have loved to bring him back, but I mean, when everyone remembers Albert Pujols, they're going to think of him in a St. Louis Cardinals uniform, not an Angels uniform. Unfortunately, it didn't work out there, but again, what a great career for Pujols, and obviously he played with Mike Trout during the entirety of his career, so he was a great mentor for Trout at the beginning of his career, and it's kind of like the passing of the torch from one great to the next, and all those years he had with the Cardinals, he was a 3-time MVP, was a runner-up 2 more times, multiple Silver Sluggers, won a Gold Glove. I mean, you really talk about just being a pure hitter and one of the best hitters the game has ever seen. I mean, he and Miguel Cabrera and Manny Ramirez, when you think of that generation, those are the 3 guys that you're going to think of.
Absolutely. 3 final things of Pujols, some trivia to see if you guys know this. When he came up as a rookie, do you guys know what positions he played that year? He played 2. Third base, he played another one.
Left field?
Played left field, that's right. In 2000,
sorry, James. Sorry about that.
Yeah, James knew it here. I'll give him that. In 2011, when he was a free agent, do you remember the other team that was hot on his pursuit? The Miami Marlins, looking to make a splash.
They had moved to Miami. They brought in Jose Reyes, Mark Burley, and Heath Bell, and they tried bringing in Albert Pujols to really surprise people. And do you remember who else they pursued that offseason?
Yeah, I believe they also pursued. It wasn't Fielder, was it?
No, it was a pitcher.
Oh, man, 2011 free agent pitchers. Who was it?
C.J. Wilson.
Oh, that's right. The other fantastic deal the Angels have made, that C.J. Wilson deal. Oh, my goodness. C.J. Wilson, that is a throwback name there. Final thing on Pujols. I just got to say, James mentioned his favorite memory. One of mine of Pujols, of course, the 3 home run games in Texas. But come on, his home run and his return to Busch Stadium. That was chilling. That was
unbelievable. And the standing ovation.
Unbelievable. A home run hit against their home team, and they give the guy a standing O. That was absolutely chilling. A great moment indeed. I'm glad that happened in 2019 when that could be a full ballpark there to appreciate it. Once again, if you want to call in at any time during Nation's Pastime and Nation's Capital show tonight, that number is 202-319-5106. That's 202-319-5106. Guys, last week we're going to move on here with some standings talk. And last week we talked about what the Brewers had to do to tread water and stay atop of that NL Central Division. And they got Christian Yelich back earlier in the week. He played 1 game, went back on the IL, and guys, it's not looking so hot after they've just swept out of Philadelphia the last 4 games.
No, I mean, you really only have a couple guys producing in that order. You have Travis Shaw, who's the team leader in RBIs, but he's only hitting 220. Avisail Garcia, I mean, he had a 4-hit night last night to bump his average up to 260, but before this series against Philadelphia, he really hadn't done much. And then, of course, you have Colton Wong at the top of the order hitting to around 290 or 300. But besides those guys, nobody on the offense is really performing. Jackie Bradley Jr. has been a flop so far. Keston Hiura has been dreadful. I mean, they optioned him to the alternate site in AAA on Monday, and a former first-round pick, a guy who played really well in 2019, just has not been the same since the start of 2020. And they're going to need him to get whatever he needs fixed, or else it's not going to be looking good. And Locane, he obviously hasn't been the same guy that he's been in the past few years, and it's unfortunate because if Yelich isn't there for a long period of time, you wonder how long the pitching can hold up.
When the pitching has been fantastic, that's the thing. But just that, like you said, that lineup outside of 2 guys is just absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, Brandon Woodruff has been really good this season. Brent Suter, that's another pitcher for the Brewers.
Brent Suter?
Yeah, Brent Suter, sorry. He's been really good as well. So the Brewers' pitching is there. It's just a matter of the lineup being an issue.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's going to be interesting to see if they can continue to have their pitching tread water while they wait for guys like Yelich to come back. And the other thing we talked about, Peralta, who was really holding his own, 5 runs in the first inning the other night, not looking good.
And the other thing is that the Cardinals are getting hot. They're finally streaking. They're getting hot. So the Brewers are going to have to turn it around quickly, or else it could get over fast, because the St. Louis Cardinals are finally, I think, becoming the team that we all thought they were going to be. And they're hitting the ball, they're pitching well, and they're really, really doing just a good. They're playing consistent baseball, and that's what the Cardinals do year in, year out. They play consistent baseball. They'll always be in the playoff hunt. And so, if the Brewers want to keep this a 2-team race, they're going to have to tread water and get legit offensive production while Yelich is out.
Speaking of the Cardinals, by the way, how about Jack Flaherty this season? He's returned. Last year, he obviously fell off a little bit. The dude is 5-0 right now.
Yeah, and he's looked good.
Now his ERA, it's 3.41. So that's not the greatest, but that's still pretty good. Now, 5-0 with the 3.41 ERA, that's a great ace. And James is right. St. Louis is up on the rise. I know that they've lost the last 2 games, but if you look aside that, they've just been insane this season.
And you had to think this was going to happen eventually. A lineup with Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado in it was just too good to not do this eventually. I think the big thing that's going to help them as well, just from a team leader aspect as well, is once Yachty gets back and is healthy.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously their closer, Alex Reyes.
Oh man, he's been great,
unbelievable. I think he's 11 for 11 to save opportunities.
11 for 11, hasn't allowed a single run yet.
Yeah, he's been obviously, we're gonna have to see it for a full season, but he has been one of the best relievers in baseball all season long.
And correct me if I'm wrong, he was a starting pitcher prospect when he came out.
He was.
Yeah, they did that with Martinez as well. Didn't really work out. He's now in the rotation again. I don't really know what's going on with that. What was that?
Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly, that's right. He as well.
Martinez has gone back and forth from the rotation to the bullpen, back to the rotation. I don't really like that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, but honestly, they're trying to find a place that suits him best. I remember he had a little bit of success as a closer for a while. He had success as a starting pitcher. Obviously, he's just been all over the place.
Well, he's also been getting hurt a lot, so
not helping either. No.
Well, yes, the St. Louis Cardinals. Nolan Arenado is. I still can't believe the Rockies traded him. He's unreal, and I'm glad that he's in a legit baseball town like St. Louis that can actually.
Oh, they love him. They do.
And he's been their best player, obviously, deservedly so. And I can't wait for him to go back to Colorado for the All-Star game and get the ovation that he should have gotten had he been in Colorado. But flipping gears to actually the AL Central, the Chicago White Sox. They've obviously had the Eloy Jimenez injury.
Tough one this week, though, with Robert.
Luis Robert on Sunday. That he's out till at least August if everything goes well, but he might be shelved for the rest of the season. But they're 16-14, only a half game back of Cleveland in first place in the AL Central. The big thing I want to talk about is Tony La Russa. I think we could all point to the fact that it was a terrible hire at the beginning. You had 2 incredibly qualified managers in A.J. Hinch and Alex Cora both sitting out there for the taking.
They had some baggage.
Yes, they had some baggage, and obviously Cora had the inside track with the Red Sox, considering that the scandal happened with Houston and that he was most likely destined to go back there. But how do you not hire A.J. Hinch? This is a team. It's a young team with a lot of foreign players, and you hire a 76-year-old white dude who does he really connect with the new generation of the game?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Does he have a feel for it? Come on. Yesterday, the biggest thing for me yesterday, they went into extra innings tied at 0. They made a double switch, so Liam Hendricks, the pitcher spot was the last out of the inning, and Liam Hendricks came in. So to start the extra inning rule, the new rule this year is that if the pitcher makes the last out, you can go to the batted out before. You can go to the batted out before to have them be the runner. Tony La Russa didn't know the rule. He had Liam Hendricks be the runner. Obviously, Billy Hamilton struck out to end the inning with Hendricks on third. So it's not like Hendricks made a blunder. But after the game, La Russa came out and said he didn't know that was a rule. How do you not know the rule, especially in a National League ballpark? And I don't think he has a grip on the clubhouse. There were rumors coming out this weekend that there's discontent in the clubhouse. They don't agree with a lot of his pitching decisions, especially when he left Giolito out to dry on Patriots Day in Boston when he gave up 7 runs in an inning and a third, and then when he left Giolito out for too long in his next start after cruising over 6 innings. He's made some questionable decisions, and I think La Russa should be one and done, or potentially even get canned in the middle of the season, because this White Sox team is ready to take off. Despite these 2 injuries, they're still ready to take off. Unleash Michael Kopech and put him into the rotation. You need something in the rotation to get you going, especially with Giolito's struggles so far. Unleash him. He's ready to be unleashed. Do something to actually help out your ball club. And it was the White Sox should need to cut bait with La Russa after this year or sooner, because it was a terrible mistake to bring him in.
It was a questionable decision as soon as they announced that he was going to be the manager, like you said, with so many great names out there. But let's also not forget how his tenure as White Sox manager started off.
See, that's what I was. That's
Do you
what I was
remember?
Yeah, it was a disaster. He comes in, and who was it he was having issues with? He came in, and people were saying that there were a lot of allegations against him in the past.
Oh, I'm not talking about allegations. I'm talking about the first thing that happened as soon as he got hired.
Which thing are you referring to? Do you know what
DUI.
Oh, that's what you're.
Yeah.
See, well, what I was going to say was that a lot of people have said, shady things about Tony La Russa, that he might not be
Oh,
the
I don't
greatest
question
human
that
being.
at all, no.
And, the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of people who are, people just aren't happy on the White Sox.
No. And honestly, I'm not surprised. Like James said, why would you bring in a guy like that on a young team? Like you said, do you really think that connects with the young generation? I don't really know what the decision-making process was there.
Just because they made a mistake firing him way back does not mean you amend for that by bringing him in now.
Yeah, trying to make up for it. Exactly, that's what it was. I don't know. What year was that? It was back in the 80s,
Yeah,
wasn't
it was. I don't remember what year it was in the 80s. I think it was 88 or 89.
Sounds ridiculous. This guy should not be still managing.
No.
This guy, Tony La Russa, was a guy, when he was with St. Louis, I feel like always got way more credit for being more of a genius than he actually was.
Yeah, I mean, some of those Cardinal teams were incredibly talented.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember those teams back in the day with Pujols, Berkman, Molina, Wainwright.
Oh, yeah.
Chris
Great
Carpenter
teams.
as an
Great
example.
teams.
Just an all-around great team. Now, you are right. Tony La Russa got way too much credit, and I don't understand why the White Sox brought him in after going how many years without managing?
Well, it was I think 10, but like they brought him in because of his his relationship with the owner and like wanting to cite a mistake and not. But like that doesn't mean you bring him in. Like it's just terrible.
I'm gonna say, I don't know, guys. I really do think James is right. You got to can him sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Especially if it keeps getting like this, because I think he is. I obviously you have two injuries to two of your best players, but I think he is one of these sole reasons why they're just hovering around 500.
But the thing is, if you can him, who are you bringing in, like a bench coach? Because I don't know that many big name managers that are out on the
Here's
market.
the thing.
Get him out. Like I don't think it matters.
No, you definitely get him out, but I'm just asking you guys hypothetically, like, who would you bring in?
Here's the
That's
thing.
what I'm just asking.
I've always been of the opinion that it really doesn't matter who's there, and they can only harm the team and not help the team.
Yeah.
If you put a guy, like, I'll give you a good example. Like, everyone thought Ryan Sandberg was going to be the future of the Phillies managing, and that didn't work out. They just stuck Pete McCann in there for 3 years. He didn't hurt the team. He was just there. He managed. If the team's good, the team's going to be good. The manager can only do stupid things to hurt the team.
And I think Alex Cora, AJ Hinch would have brought them the right energy and motivation, and I think we would have seen a much different brand of baseball so far from them.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that AJ Hinch was not hired by them and ended up going to Detroit, it doesn't. It's an embarrassment.
It'll pay dividends for Detroit down the road.
Oh,
Obviously,
it will.
right now they're the worst team in baseball, but down the road it's going to pay dividends that they wrote it out with Hinch, that they hired him amid the scandal, and hopefully for them they take off in a few years.
Also, if you watch Tiger games, you would know that AJ Hinch is not the reason that this team is so bad.
No kidding.
Like, now, granted, I'm not saying if you put AJ Hinch as the White Sox manager, I think the White Sox are clearly better than the Cleveland Indians. I think the record's much better. I think Hinch is well experienced in big games. I think that he has experience that would be very great for them, and I think he does a good job of connecting with players, unlike Tony La Russa.
Speaking of the White Sox, real quick, we'll move on. Obviously, with the loss of Luis Robert, very, very unfortunate. They need a center fielder. There's a lot of teams that need center fielders come the deadline. What do you guys think are going to be, who do you think are going to be three of the top ones out there? Because I have a couple of potential
Jesse
people
Winker.
who could to play center.
Get a bat. Just get a bat.
I mean, he's not a center
You
fielder,
would suffer big time if you threw him in center. There's a couple other names I think could be on there. That is a possibility. If you want to say, hey, screw it, we just want the bat.
I think the White Sox are going to say screw it, we want a bat, because obviously like he's a corner outfielder,
Yeah.
yes, but like
Well, let me run another name by you. A guy who's played center field before and is not good there, Chris Bryant. I know the Cubs are playing good.
Yeah, well, speaking of the Cubs, before we get to if the Cubs, congrats to them, great sweep of the Dodgers.
Oh, fantastic game, fantastic series.
Obviously, Bryant, when he's healthy, he's a top 10 to 15 player in baseball.
He's showing it right now.
And I think people forgot how good Chris Bryant was just because of the injuries. But he was an All-Star in 19, he was MVP in 16, obviously the Rookie of the Year in 15, and this year so far, he's put together another phenomenal season and he can play multiple positions. He's hitting .308 on the year right now with 9 homers, which is tied for second in the league, and he's got 22 RBIs and a 1068 OPS. I mean, if Chris Bryant is going to be the hottest name on the trading block, and I don't understand why the Cubs just don't re-sign him, because he's better than Javi Baez, he's better than Anthony Rizzo, he's a top 10 to 15 player in baseball, and he's right up there with Nolan Arenado and Alex Bregman for one of the best third basemen in the game.
See, if they don't re-sign him, I think it'll be due to financial reasons. But Andrew, going back to your point,
Yeah.
your original
About the center
statement
fielders?
about Bryant getting traded to the White Sox.
I'm not saying that's
I do
happening.
not see-
My question was, considering there's not a lot of conventional center fielders on the market, a lot of these teams are probably going to have to get creative. Exactly.
That's fair.
You got
Now-
Winker, you got Bryant.
See, if the White Sox are not looking for another bat, why not go get a guy like Jake Marisnick?
I was going to say Marisnick's a name that's been on my radar. Another one, Starling Marte, if the Marlins are out of it. Another one, Ketel Marte. That could get a big haul for the Diamondbacks.
If Arizona decides to cut bait and kind of start a new rebuild. Obviously, like, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. We'll see if the Andrew Vaughn experiment can ever work out in the outfield. Obviously, he's not a natural outfielder and hasn't worked out so far. But come the deadline, there's going to be a lot of teams who need outfield bats. Obviously, the White Sox are one. The Red Sox are another one who are going to need an outfield bat. I mean, we'll see what happens. And I think, like, I want to go back to the Cubs and Chris Bryant.
Yeah, of course.
Kudos to the Cubs because they were kind of on the brink here. You know, they were 12-16 entering the series, and if they didn't come out and do damage, they were at risk of really falling behind and not a great NL Central right now. Obviously, the Cardinals have caught fire, and the Brewers have done their thing all year, but the Cubs are hanging around, and they had a great series against the Dodgers, sweeping the doubleheader, a walk-off on Tuesday night, and then a walk-off last night off the bat of Anthony Rizzo. They've showed tremendous heart, tremendous grit, and they're really hanging around. And Rizzo and Bryant are performing, and this could be their last year in Chicago together. And, of course, they want to make it memorable. And, the Cubs are going to hang tough. Obviously, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to go down without a fight. They're going to hang around, and if they're not in at the deadline, they will get a big haul for Chris Bryant and or Anthony Rizzo because Chris Bryant is absolutely deserving of it. And we haven't talked about him that much this year, but he truly is one of my favorite players in the game to watch because he can do it all. Like he is a true 5-tool player, and he can play multiple positions, and he's not a liability in the field. He's solid.
Now, another name that I don't think will happen, but is possible. What about a guy like Brian Reynolds from the Pirates?
For center field?
Yeah, he's a center fielder.
Yeah, okay.
I'm saying, but the Pirates are really bad, but, if we're talking about giving up a big haul like Ketel Marte, I'm sure a guy like Brian Reynolds
would you make a big haul for them, though? Is he really worth as big of a haul for a guy like Marte or something? He's
not as good as Ketel Marte, but he'll hit 300. He'll play solid defense. He's a good leadoff hitter, I believe.
Okay, if we're just throwing out random names, and this can be the last one before we move on.
Yeah,
Ryan
of course.
McMahon.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, guy can play all over as well. He's had a couple of great games for the D-backs, for the Rockies this year. That is another good name. That's a good point, absolutely, James. A quick reminder, if you want to call in at all during any point in the show, discuss anything baseball-related, that number is 202-319-5106. That's 202-319-5106. Speaking of players who have done remarkable this year and maybe, I don't know if they're not getting the right attention. Let me just put it this way. I want to talk about a certain guy on the Twins right now. Byron Buxton, is he the player that they thought he was going to be and maybe more? Because he's having a fantastic season.
At long last, Byron Buxton has arrived. Like he was he and Dylan Bundy were the two headline prospects in the 2012 prospect class. Buxton made his debut, I believe it was 2014. And, he's shown flashes of it. He won a Gold Glove in 2017. He got on a hot streak in August of 17. He got on a hot streak in August of 19, but he's never, put it together. And there's a reason why he was the number one prospect and a top 5 draft pick in his draft. When he and Sano were coming up, he was the number one prospect, Sano was the number 5 prospect. There was a lot of hope in the Twins organization that those would be the two guys to turn it around. And I think Byron Buxton has finally arrived, and hopefully he can continue this throughout his career. He's hitting .370 on the year, which is absolutely unbelievable. He's got 9 homers, which is tied for second in the league, 17 RBIs, and an 1180 OPS with 5 stolen bases. So this is finally the guy that I think they all thought they were getting in the draft. He's a career .247 hitter, but he was supposed to hit for a lot higher average when he came up. And he's been a Gold Glove defender for the last few years, and I'm glad to see the offense coming together because he's always had that talent. It's just taken something, whatever it is to unlock it, he's finally unlocked it, and I'm glad to see because he is a fun player to watch.
He is. Robbie, do you think Byron Buxton is for real, or is this going to fizzle out?
See, I do think he's for real. I mean, right now Byron Buxton is 27 years old. That's typically, a player's prime. It's just my thing is right now it's a shame to see this because it's a shame to see that the Twins are performing so poorly when he's been performing so well because throughout his entire career, Byron Buxton's been a questionable hitter. Now that he's actually starting to learn how to hit pretty well, the team's really been disappointing. I mean, the lineup's been fine, I feel like. Nelson Cruz has been good. Kyle Garlick has been fine. D. Gordon's been fine. Jorge Polanco's been really bad this season, which is a shame, but even some of their pitchers, Michael Pineda, he's been good this year. Jose Barrios, I think he's doing pretty well. I haven't really seen much about.
Well, he was battling Corbin Burns for that dual no-hitter a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's been great.
I think he's been fine. I think the bullpen's been really bad. I know that they have I think their bullpen's been really bad this year. I know that the Alex Colome experience has not worked out for them this year. So, I think it's just a shame to see the bullpen blow so many games and to see some of their starting pitchers really struggle, especially after seeing Byron Buxton perform well.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of struggling teams, I was going to move into this when we were talking about the Brewers, but I think we definitely have to spend a little bit of time, of course, talking about the NL East. We do it a lot here, but Guys, we entered May this past week with not a single NL East team over 500. Currently, there was only one. It's the Philadelphia Phillies, 2 games over 500. The Mets are at 500, 13-13. They just had a good series in St. Louis. The Braves just had a fantastic series in Washington and swept the Nationals. And the Marlins are hanging in there. This is 5 teams that are absolutely deadlocked at mediocrity. And I got to ask you guys, everyone thought this division was going to be loaded. But is this the character that's going to define this division for the year? They all beat up on each other and they all hang around the 500 mark?
I think one team will pull away eventually because there are good teams in that division, but I think for the majority of it, it will be a dogfight. And maybe we overrated the division and it's not as good as everyone thought it was going to be. And, obviously, like that does have something to do with everyone playing each other and beating up on each other. But, I mean, at a certain point, like a team would pull away. So it also is, I think the teams are just not playing as well. Obviously, Francisco Lindor was in an 0-for-26 slump before going 1-for-3 today, to bring his average up to 163. But again, I mean, I think when you look at all these teams, there are a lot bigger weaknesses that each one of these teams have than we thought going into the season. And it's going to be who can outlast and who can stay healthiest. And I think one team, after the All-Star break, will eventually start to pull away and kind of build a lead. We'll see who it is, obviously. It's just tough to tell right now because 1 week you think it's the Phillies, 3 days later you think it's the Braves, 2 days later you'll say it's the Mets, then the Nats will climb back in, and then the Marlins are going to remain pesky all year. So, I mean, right now you really can't get a firm grip on it, even though the Phillies are the only team over 500.
Yeah, it really is surprising. I think that not only that no one thought this was going to happen, but also that I think it also, you mentioned about the beating up on each other point, and it should be said that they are playing in the division a lot, and I mean a lot to start this season. A lot of the teams have played the majority of their games against the division so far. There haven't been a lot of out-of-division play until recently, and I think, like you said, as we get closer to the All-Star break, it's going to, hopefully, as they play more teams, one of them is going to pull away and see. But I also think it is a real possibility that the weaknesses of these teams have been under-addressed, and each of them has a glaring weakness right now as far as I can see, and maybe it stays that way. It's going to be a very competitive market. A lot of the teams will need outfield bats. There's only so many of them to go around.
Well,
Everyone always needs bullpen help. There's only so many of that to go around. It could be a division that I could see hanging on throughout mediocrity. One team makes the playoffs and they win the division by a few games over 500.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about outfield bats. Another guy that could be on the move if the Mets do fall out of it is Michael Conforto.
Oh,
obviously.
absolutely.
He didn't have a great April, but he's really picked it up this last week. And if you look at his average, he's only hitting 234.
Yeah.
So it's like you can look at the numbers and say he's not there. Trust me, he is. He was hitting, I believe, 170 going into last week. And he's finally he's not costing himself millions. If he keeps this up, his numbers will be where they're at. A 280 guy who can hit 30 homers, drive in 100, and he would be a huge pickup for a team if the Mets were to fall out of it and trade him if they don't think they can re-sign him.
So here's the thing, Robbie, I want to ask you this. There is a real possibility that each one of the 5 teams in the NL East, any of them, could be a seller at the deadline. Is that fair to say, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to ask you this now. In 2018, the Nationals decided not to trade Bryce Harper at the deadline after the haul they would have gotten from the Houston Astros.
Right, and the Cleveland Indians. That was another
And the
haul they
Cleveland
could have
Indians.
gotten.
I want to go back to Washington for a second and talk about another superstar and Hall of Famer. Max Scherzer. If the Washington Nationals are out of it at the deadline, do you trade Max Scherzer, get that haul, and then try to re-sign him if you're the Washington Nationals?
No, because there was also talk about trading him. Oh, my apologies.
You're good.
Trading him in 19,
Yeah.
and they didn't.
Robbie, what do you think?
No, I agree.
So you don't think they would do it?
No.
Do you think that's the right move
Would
to
you
not do
personally
it?
do it?
What would you personally do?
That's a tough question.
Because he is the franchise pitcher at this point.
See,
I don't care about Steven Strasburg. This is the greatest pitcher
Question
in the
is, can you
franchise.
re-sign him in the offseason?
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. If you can re-sign him now, personally, I'd be willing to bank on it. I think he really likes DC. I wouldn't love the idea as a fan. Fans are going to be angry if they trade him.
Oh, yeah.
But going back to NL East really quickly.
Yeah.
A team that I got to admit, guys, I was wrong. I was wrong about the Atlanta Braves. I really don't buy this team.
They're not good.
The pitching is so bad. Drew Smiley's been so bad.
He was okay today. I'll give him that.
He was okay today.
681 run ball,
Yeah,
yeah.
but Max Fried, he's been so bad. Ian Anderson's been pretty good.
The bullpen. Talk about the bullpen.
Oh my gosh.
The bullpen is
Now-
atrocious.
Now, correct me if I think Luke Jackson's been really good though, hasn't he?
I think he has been, but
Yeah, and Will Smith is doing pretty. He's doing pretty
let
well.
me ask you this:
Will
why does
Smith-
Nate Jones have a job?
Nate Jones?
Yes, why does he have a job, dude? He is so bad.
I don't know. I mean, I'd be surprised if somebody signs him at the end of the year. He's a free agent. But now, James. One interesting name to talk about, though, I think, is Charlie Morton. I don't think, his ERA says he's been bad.
ERA's over 5. But really, if you look at it, he's had 2 really bad starts, and that's why his ERA is so high. So Charlie Morton, I don't think is as bad as people may think he is. But overall, though, I still say that the rotation's a problem. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, but the only thing I was going to say is that you can't give up on any of these teams because, yes, it still is May, and all it takes is like a 2-week hot streak for one of these teams to finally find their groove. Even if it is Atlanta. Like, I'm not ready to just count out Atlanta yet, especially with the way the rest of the division is playing. Like, they have enough talent on the team where if they were to get it together, nobody would be shocked by it.
Yeah, I think the point Rob was just making, though, is everyone looked at the division and said, hey, the Braves are just going to pull away again. They have so much talent.
Everybody was saying that the Braves were probably going to walk away with the division. And honestly, I know, Andrew, I think you said the Mets were going to win at the beginning of the year.
I had the Mets, but I was against you, and I said the Braves are not as good of a team as people think they are.
Right. And honestly, I don't think that this Jacob deGrom injury is as serious as people may think
I hope
it is.
not. Well, actually,
as long as he can stay healthy, I think the Mets are going to win the division. That's where I'm standing at right now.
Yeah, they're hanging right there.
Okay, yeah, I don't think the injury is serious, but when do you guys think Lindor turns it around? And do you think, like, obviously I understand where the boos are coming from, but, like, if he does turn it around, then the fans are just going to look like idiots.
Are you going to ask me if the boos are deserved? Is that what you were going to ask?
No.
I was going to say, because I think yes, first of all.
No, I was asking if he's going to turn it around.
No, I'm saying, yeah, when is he going to turn it around? Because, like, if he does turn it around, then it's just like I hear this from a lot of Mets fans. It's like, you look silly for booing him right now when he does turn it around.
Do they, though? Because this is supposed to be, they gave him so much money. He is supposed to be a franchise player. They went out and got him.
Look, I
don't think that there's anything wrong with booing him.
I think the boos are warranted. But I think what a lot of Mets fans are saying is that let it ride out because the numbers will be there at the end of the year.
I mean, let it ride out. Hey, it's been a month so far. How much longer are we going to wait for Francisco Lindor to pick it up?
When do you think he's going to turn it around?
I don't think he will. I think it's going to be the worst year of his career. He looks lost at the plate. If you watched him play, he looks lost at the plate.
No, that's interesting, though, because I agree with you. He has looked lost. Now, I think, Lindor is not going to finish the season hitting 163.
No, I didn't say that.
No, right. But what I'm saying is, like, I think if he is going to I don't think he will pick it up. I agree with Andrew. I think he's going to have a really bad season. And honestly, I could see this contract being really bad. But if he does pick up, and I believe he will, I believe he's going to get his average up to the 240 range around a little bit after the All-Star break.
See, I think he really gets on a hot streak in the second half right after the All-Star break. I think because the division will remain muddled like this, through the first half. A team, and I think it's going to be the Mets, will come out in the second half guns a-blazing. They'll have DeGrom for a full second half. They'll have Syndergaard back. They'll have Stroman. They have the pitching. They have the pieces. You'll have Conforto. You'll have McNeil, and you'll have Lindor. And I think Lindor will see the opportunity there. He'll finally get going in the second half and lead the Mets to the playoffs. Like that's personally what I think is going to happen. Is that it's going to take him the whole first half to finally piece whatever to piece whatever he needs to together, and then he really just gets hot in the second half and helps carry them to the playoffs.
See, I also think that this Met team has too many pieces that are not performing well right now, and I think that they will pick it up and turn it around eventually. I think Jeff McNeil's going to pick it up eventually. I think Michael Conforto's going to pick it up eventually, like James said. I don't think Dominic Smith is a 230 hitter. I think Dominic Smith is a better hitter than people give him credit for, and then obviously Francisco Lindor. So I agree with James. I think the second half is when the Mets are going to really turn things around.
Because right now the only guy that's really hitting for them is Pete Alonso. He's hitting 289 with an 886 OPS. I mean, he's like, if it wasn't for him, who knows where? If it wasn't for him or DeGrom, who knows where the Mets would be? Because really, those are the only two guys who are picking up the slack.
Yeah, DeGrom both with the bat and the arm.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, in terms of offense, it really just is Alonso. And Conforto's picked it up in the last week, but consistently it's only been Pete Alonso.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick note before we move on, because there's one big thing we have not talked about yet. But you got to talk about Jacob deGrom yet again. It's absolutely embarrassing at this point. I know he's hurt now, but this guy he's aging and getting better, and it is an absolute shame what just goes on there in New York. Something needs to be done. Something mentally has to be done, because it's embarrassing to watch a guy pour his heart and soul out like this, and then after the game say things like, oh, my fastball command wasn't there. That's the reason we lost 1-0. It's absolutely sad.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, DeGrom is by far the best pitcher in baseball, and there's no reason he should be losing games left and right. The dude has a 0.51 ERA. The dude has no Met pitchers ever gotten to 50 strikeouts this quickly in a season. Jacob deGrom has been absolutely filthy, and honestly, he should be an MVP contender, because if it weren't for Jacob deGrom, this Met team would not be good. They'd be much worse than they are now.
Oh, yeah, and here's the other thing about deGrom. He is someone who, oh my goodness, I completely forgot what I was going to say there, but Jacob deGrom...
He's going to have a Randy Johnson-type second half of his career. He's got a lot of bullets left in his arm.
Yeah, and you know what? I was going to say something. I was going to talk about how if he's on a team right now with the Mets, it's weird to say, because I'm trying to think of a way to word this without saying, oh, it's because it's the Mets. But if you take the talent that's on the Mets, and you have Jacob deGrom on top of that, the best pitcher in baseball, and some of the talent you have in that lineup, there's no reason that they shouldn't be well above where they are right now. That is, and look, I'm saying this with all the hate in my heart for the New York Mets. They are a really, really good baseball team on paper. And they, like Robbie said, need to pick it up because there is no excuse for what they're doing right now.
I think a big part is the bullpen. The bullpen hasn't been that. Now it's not.
It hasn't been terrible.
It hasn't been terrible. Not like previous years. Jenrys Familia, he's been really good. Edwin Diaz hasn't been that great this season. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that he blew a few games.
He almost blew a game. He came into the game on Sunday Night Baseball. Actually, the pleasure of being there. It was a roller coaster of an experience.
Now we can go to our next topic.
Yeah, is that our next topic? I was going to talk about a certain team out west, but we can talk about the umpires real quick. In case anyone missed it, that was a 7-3 game at one point, I believe. And in the ninth inning, Edwin Diaz came in and did his magic. Gave up a ton of runs, gave up a ton of hits, and they had to bring in Jerry's Familia to clean up the door. They ended up winning 7-6. But Rhys Hoskins hits a ball into right field with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth and 2 strikes. Called a home run. After further review, it is overturned because apparently they had enough evidence to prove that it was not a home run. They had indisputable evidence, apparently. Not sure I'd agree about that, but James, what do you want to talk about the umpires
I want
here?
to talk about Angel Hernandez and why he still has a job. We talked about it last week, and
it's a good question.
He's made 2 more bad calls this week in 2 consecutive nights.
Yeah, and he was also called out for it by Tito this week as well.
Tito Francona says, "Why does this stuff always seem to happen when you're here?" There was a ball 2 nights ago. There was a fly ball into right center, and that both outfielders lost it. It dropped in between them, and Angel Hernandez somehow called it a catch, and he said, "I lost it in the scoreboard lights." And it really confused the base runners because Andrew Benintendi was running to third, and then his third base coach saw Angel Hernandez call it an out, had him run back to second. Cleveland tagged him out. They eventually sent him to third. They fixed the call, but it was just everyone was in utter confusion because everyone saw the ball drop except for Angel. And then last night, oh boy, you want to talk about last night. A balk call that the Royals didn't like, a couple strike calls, and Mike Matheny got ejected. Their bench coach got ejected, and Brady Singer on his way out of the game got ejected. Angel Hernandez is ruining baseball games, and I'm not sure why he still has a job, besides how well the Umpires Association really backs these umpires.
That's the sole reason, just because he is so protected. He's not the only umpire that's been really bad this year. I've had so many issues with umpires this year. The other night I had issues with Tim Timmons. Like that. It's every single day you're seeing these blown calls, and it ruins the game of baseball. I know that last year we always spoke about, robot umps, should that become a thing? Nobody's really talking about that at the moment, but when are people going to step up and say something?
Well, hey, like James said, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, I want to buy my ticket, put on my jersey, and go down to the ballpark to see the umpires, because that's what they must think with the way that they've been acting recently.
Yesterday Joe West was a home plate umpire, and he got 85% of balls and strikes calls correct. That's really bad. The MLB average is about 95%. When you're getting 85% correct, that's enough to really change a game, and that's why it's so frustrating as a baseball fan to see this.
Well, and especially because recently almost every broadcast has incorporated the strike zone on their actual program, and you can see, of course, that's by no means perfect, but you can see when they mess up, and now that it's even more evident, I think this is what's furthering this discussion recently, that there is a major problem with these umpires. It's not just the replay reviews, it's that I think that has a big impact as well. You get to see every time that they make a terrible call, and that's what it has been, and I think it's absolutely something that needs to be talked about more, of whether or not robotic umpires are going to be a thing in the future. You know that organization is going to fight with their dying breath and to not let that happen. But for the good of baseball, it's something that needs to be seriously considered.
Yesterday, Jose Navas was the umpire for the Yankees-Astros game. The dude missed 21 calls.
Yeah, that's 21. Embarrassing. There's no excuse for that. It really is embarrassing. Something does need to be done. But it feels like we're talking about that every week here on Nation's Pastime and Nation's Capital, with good reason. But we'll move on to a final topic here I think we got to spend the last 10 minutes on, because
can
we
I just
briefly...
touch on one thing for 30 seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Houston Astros resurgence the past week. They're one game above 500, only one game back in the AL West. Their run differential the past week I think has been like plus 15. The big day for Yordan Alvarez today off Garrett Cole. Bregman has rebounded, this year. He was my AL MVP pick at the beginning of the year. And that division right now is kind of up for grabs. Oakland was red hot for a while, but they're kind of coming back down to earth, and I think the Astros are eventually going to be the team that takes a stranglehold on it.
Yeah, no arguments there. They've definitely picked it up recently. A big series in New York.
I don't think they're winning the West, though.
That's fair. No,
I still think it's Oakland.
I still think it'll be any of 3 teams in the West.
Oakland Athletics.
Hey, you're sticking with Oakland. Hopefully, Trevor Rosenthal gets back and saves that prediction for you there. Otherwise, not looking so good.
Oakland looked really bad today, though.
They did.
They
didn't
got
look good.
shelled by the Blue Jays.
Yeah. Speaking of California teams, while we're at it, like I said, we got to close this out with a big discussion here because we mentioned it when we talked about the Cubs and how they swept the Dodgers. But come on, the Dodgers guys, they are 3-14 in their last 17 games.
It's tied for the worst record in baseball over that span with the Detroit
Tigers.
Tigers.
It is absolutely abysmal what the Los Angeles Dodgers are doing. They just walked into a team in Wrigley Field that is not good and should not be doing what they are doing. Got swept by them. Everything is looking like a mess right now for the Dodgers. And James asked this before the show, but I'm going to ask you guys right now on air. Are they still going to get the best record in baseball? Because I don't think it's a given anymore.
It's not a given. I still think they'll get there. Like right now, the only guy that's performing consistently is Trevor Bauer.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have Seager hitting, I think, 250 over his last. No, it's worse than that. I think it's 189 over his last 23. Gavin Lux is hitting below 150. Mookie Betts is hitting 200. I mean, the only guy that's really performing consistently is Trevor Bauer.
Justin Turner's been pretty good.
Yes, Justin Turner. But Trevor Bauer has consistently put up good starts, and they still somehow aren't winning. He's got a 2.4 ERA, and he is everything as advertised right now as one of the highest.
Oh, yeah. Talk about the starting pitching. I mean, Kershaw was out in the first inning in the game the other day. Gave up, I think it was 5 runs. Four earned runs in the first inning. Didn't even make it out of the inning. And look, I mean, that's not something you need going on at all, especially when you're in a skid like this where you're 3-14 over your last 17. I'm not sure who they're playing this weekend. Do you happen to know? Because they need to seriously turn this around. Coming out of
and I hate to use the injury excuses, but and as much as we prided their depth is taking a real beating right now with all the injuries they have. Bellinger needs to get back soon. Gavin Lux just got off the IL, but he's been abysmal so far. Like the guys that are in the lineup, obviously Mookie and Seager and all of them. Besides Turner, they need to get going because Turner's the only one that's hitting. But the injuries have taken a toll on them, and I didn't think I would be saying that going into the year.
Now, Andrew, back to your original question.
Yeah.
They're playing the Angels this upcoming weekend.
Are they playing it in Anaheim?
Yeah, it's in Anaheim.
All right, they need to go there, and they need to sweep this.
No,
seriously.
I agree. Now, the thing is, the good part for the Dodgers, though, is that, well, number one, they're getting Joe Kelly back today. That'll help a little bit.
That'll help.
It'll help a little bit. But the pitching, I think, still looked good. Obviously, Kershaw got shoved the other day, but the bullpen's been good. Victor Gonzalez has been good. Kenley Jansen's been good. Clevenger's been good. Trinan's been good. So their bullpen's fine. Walker Buehler, I thought looked pretty good yesterday. Gave up a little 2-run dock, but other than that, I think the rotation's been fine. I think Clayton Kershaw just had a bad start. So, I'm not too concerned about the Dodgers.
Yeah, ultimately, of course, they're still the most talented team in baseball. It's just a matter of, look, these teams that are the best on paper do need to step up and perform still. I do think the injuries are taking a beating on them, and that depth is suffering. But they got to turn it around sooner rather than later, because if they don't, you got another team out there in the NL West who will step right in and take that division if they're not careful.
The San Diego Padres and the Giants are hanging around. They're in first place right now.
They're in first place, and look, I know someone's going to be mad if there's a Giants fan listening that it is true. Nobody is talking about the Giants. I don't think a lot of people are taking them seriously. But, hey, they've had a lot of very good performances from their starting rotation the past couple weeks. They've had their bats come alive when they needed it. Big series in Colorado where they just won a ton of games, and, they're hanging in there. They're in first place, and they deserve the credit that what was that?
They did lose today, though.
Who did they play today?
Colorado.
Okay, well, yeah, that is unfortunate. But look, you got to give them credit. That's a team that Gabe Kapler's team. No one thought was gonna be doing anything close to this with that loaded division. And hey, I guess San Francisco fans enjoy it while it lasts, because I don't think a whole lot of people are.
Yeah. I don't think Buster Posey's going to hit 394 the entire season.
Probably not, no, although it would be cool to see.
And I don't think Evan Longoria is going to hit 290 the entire year either.
No, I don't think Evan Longoria will be doing that. They've had some good performances, though.
But let's just see how long it can last and how long it can kind of hang around. I mean, look, if they can be a thorn in the Dodgers' side, that's obviously huge for them. But we'll see how long it takes the Dodgers to get back on track. I mean, they need it bad. They need a win bad. They need to win a series bad, and ultimately, I think they will get back on track because the talent is there. The track record speaks for itself. Obviously, a big loss with Dustin May hitting the shelf this year.
Yeah.
For the rest of the season and into next year with Tommy John. That's a huge blow to them. Speaking of the depth that's taking a hit, but offensively, guys just need to get back on track, and I think the track record of Mookie, the track record of Seager, Bellinger coming back next week, most likely will be big, and then hopefully they just take off from there, and we get the Dodgers-Padres rivalry at full strength as we've seen so far.
Yeah, something I want to mention about this particular skid that the Dodgers have been on. I'm sure you guys remember in 2019, in the second half of the season where they lost something like 11 straight.
Yeah.
It was real bad. It was ugly. Everyone was hurt. And, hey, they still ended up making the World Series that year. And I do think this is a case of all teams, even the best ones, struggle at times. And hopefully for the Dodgers that it is just this time of the year that they're picking to skid here, and that the rest of the year they'll be firing full force and taking the division as a lot of people predicted.
I definitely agree. I don't know if I would say hopefully, though, because I'm going to admit I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying seeing this Dodger team struggle. I'm enjoying seeing the Yankees play well. I'm enjoying seeing the Dodgers struggle. This has been great.
Hey, it would be a shame if we didn't at least give some credit to a guy who's been doing great and helping the Yankees turn around an abysmal start, and that's Giancarlo Stanton. Man has been absolutely destroying the baseball for the New York Yankees this past week. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit about the performance he's put up?
Well, there are a lot of factors I think could influence the way Stanton's is hitting. I think one of the most interesting things that a lot of Yankee fans have been speaking about lately is the fact that he's our number 2 hitter now. In the past, he's been number 4 hitter. He's been coming up in very intense situations. But right now, he's our number 2 hitter, and I think he's been just fine there. Honestly, I think as a whole, I think the Yankees are looking much better. The three of us predicted that the Yankees were going to step it up earlier this year, and they have. They've looked great. They've looked incredible. The pitching's starting to look better. Jameson Tyon's look better.
Kluber had a great start.
Corey Kluber's been looking much better. Last start he looked good. I'm still not buying in on the Corey Kluber hype because I've seen him pitch, and it was against the Tigers, so I think we need to take it easy there, champ. But the bullpen as a whole has also been really good. Aroldis Chapman, I've never seen Aroldis Chapman perform this well before. Jonathan Loaizaga, Luis Sesa, they have been incredible, and I think Justin Wilson is going to step it up sometime soon, and once he is much better, we should get Zach Britton back. We'll have everybody perform well, and I think that we're looking pretty good.
Yeah, the New York Yankees definitely turning around there. It's going to be an exciting division race in the AL East, especially as the teams start playing each other. Guys, let's not forget, the Yankees and Red Sox have not played each other yet this season. They're going to start doing that a whole lot soon.
I don't think.
And that, I don't know who made that schedule, but that was a very weird decision because that's baseball that you want to see
especially with the way both these teams are playing right now.
Especially. And you got to imagine by the time they get to that point in June, there's going to be hopefully an even more of a rivalry as they both keep it up. I mean, they've had the long rivalry for years, as we all know. But when they're both doing good, I'll say this from a guy who's outside of American League Baseball. When the Yankees and Red Sox are both good, it's good for baseball. It really is.
And when they're both doing well, it is the best rivalry in baseball. Right now, it's obviously the Dodgers and Padres, but hopefully the Red Sox and Yankees can eventually both get back on track at the same time because when they're both good, like when they met in the LDS in 2018, that's when baseball's at its best.
That's exactly right. It is at its best when they are good, and I couldn't agree more. Guys, with that said, I think that's going to conclude the show here. Any final thoughts before we do the closing? For the year, by the way.
Well, I think the biggest thing to watch for going forward is who in the NL East will break away from the pack. I think, obviously, you have some good teams in that division that have all gotten off to slow starts. So who in the NL East is going to break away from the pack? And will Chris Bryant and Trevor Story, where will they be at the trade deadline? Chris Bryant, I'm not sure if he's going to get traded. Obviously, if the Cubs are in it, they're going to try to hold on to him. But Trevor Story is getting traded. So we'll see who needs a shortstop or who needs a bat because you could stick him at DH, obviously, if you're an American League team, or you could try to stick him at third, but who needs a bat? And then, obviously I think the AL race between the Red Sox and Yankees is going to be very interesting to watch going forward.
Robbie, any closing thoughts for this season of Nation's Pastime in the nation's capital?
I definitely agree with everything that James said. I think it'll be very interesting. I want to keep an eye out for the Mets, though, and Francisco Lindor. I know we briefly spoke about it earlier in the show, but I really mean it when I say that. I think if this Mets team could turn it around. I want to see how Lindor does. I want to see how DeGrom bounces back from the injury. I want to see just how the team does as a whole. Can Taijuan Walker keep this up? How's Edwin Diaz going to do? Will Dylan Betances ever come back? Will probably not. Will Trevor May continue to perform this well? The Mets are a lot of question marks and wild cards for me, so that's the big thing I'm going to be keeping an eye out for.
One more thing. Two guys who ran the National League in 19, Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich. They're both in the IL right now, and they've both had extended stays on the IL. Obviously, Yelich one day and then returning back to it. When those guys get back, how big of an impact they will have is going to be something to watch going forward because both their teams need them badly. The Brewers need Yelich more than the Dodgers need Bellinger, but the Dodgers still need Bellinger badly, and we'll see how big of an impact they make because when those two guys are at their peak, they're top 5 players in baseball.
Absolutely. I agree with everything that was said. I got nothing else to add. I just want to quickly remind everyone who is listening, please go ahead, follow our Twitter at @NatPastimeCap. That's where you're going to find all the information for the summer shows. If you missed it at the beginning, we're going to be doing weekly or potentially bi-weekly shows depending on the week.
And we will try to get on Spotify.
We will. We're going to try our best to get on Spotify. They will 100% be posted on Twitter, the link to YouTube there so you can listen to them. They're going to be 30-minute shorter shows, and we're going to be setting up a voicemail box that you can call in, leave a voicemail, and we're going to play it on the show. We'll answer your questions. We'll talk about the voicemail, that kind of mailbag kind of thing there.
And
very fun.
What number do they call for the voicemail?
We will figure that out.
Yes.
Also, if you want to ask a question, you can tweet us at NatPastimeCap, or you can DM us on Twitter.
Yes, absolutely. DM us, tweet at us. Either way, we'll see it no matter what. We'll get your question on the show. But please follow there again. One more time, it's at NatPastimeCap. That's where all of the summer editions of Nation's Pastime and the Nation's Capital are going to live, and where all of the updates surrounding the show will be until we are live again in September.
Baseball season's heating up, and we're not going away.
Absolutely. We want to stick with you the entire way. We want to talk baseball every week. It's what we love doing, and assuming you're listening to this, you love that too. So please stay with us. Follow us on Twitter. We're going to have a fun summer, trying something a little new, and hopefully you all do as well. Anything else from Robbie Cruz and James Higgins before we close it out here for the 2021 spring season?
That's it for me.
Fun summer baseball is ahead.
Absolutely. Fun summer baseball ahead. Thank you all so much for tuning in and listening. This has been Nation's Pastime in the Nation's Capital. I've been your host, Andrew Snaith, here with my co-host, James Higgins and Robbie Cruz. And everyone, have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Peace out, guys.